Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. This is my shop. Welcome. Today, we're not making any more brake arms or brake levers. We're going to work on a frame. I have a frame here. It was made back in May of 1991. It's B173. It's part of the B series. We were involved in a lawsuit way back when, and so we couldn't sell frames. We weren't supposed to sell frames, so we started the B series. That way, the wholesaler wouldn't know if we sold the frame. So this is B173. It was made for Richard Kelly. He lived up in Whistler. He was a ski racer, I'm told, and he also raced mountain bikes, and he wanted a custom frame. So it's kind of a mixture of a Sovereign and a Catalyst. Some of the tubes are oval, like the down tube. It's got the fat seat stays, sort of cigar shaped. And it's got what looks like rust here. We're going to find out. And there's also a big dent here from the chain suck. So that's our goal today. Got a pair of Tanguay chainstays, and those are going to go on here. So first of all, let's go over to the bench vise. I'm going to hold the bottom bracket, and we're going to see if these marks here really are rust holes. Can you see here all these marks? I did not do the sanding. Someone else did the sanding, and that looks suspiciously to me like rust. So this is how we tell. We just take a hole, a mark. Not bad. Okay, I'm hitting a little harder. It actually made a hole there. You can actually see the hole. So this is definitely rust here. And sometimes if you only have a couple little marks there, you can do the same thing. You can indent it with a center punch, and then you can fill it up with bronze, and you can smooth it out, and you can repaint it, but really it needs new stays. And how this happens, I want to show you this. Years ago, what we used to do to save weight, can you see the hole there? We drill the hole in the bottom bracket for the chainstay. And what would happen is a rider would ride the bike in the rain or wash the bike, and the water would go down the seat tube into the bottom bracket, and then they'd hang the bike up overnight for days. And the water would go down into the stays, and then when they do ride the bike, the water is in the stays, it can't escape. So once we figured that out, we didn't put the holes in the bottom bracket anymore for the chainstays. We still had the hole for the down tube and the seat tube, but no more holes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hacksaw. So I want to go pretty close to the bottom bracket, so then I don't have to do so much grinding later. I'm going slow so I don't force my way through and damage the pump peg. If I cut the bridge tube, then I can just do one side at a time. So I'll do a little scraping here of the paint. Okay, we're going to melt off each of the chainstays now. So I'm just putting a little bit of flux on here just to help protect things. I'm going to put most of the heat into the stay because the stay isn't going to get used. And the dropout is a lot heavier than the stay, so it's going to work out fine. It's probably going to stop melting right about now. Yeah, can you see it melting? Yeah, see it sagging? It sagged. All that bronze sagged there. Oh, there we go. It didn't take too long. So one stay. And it looks like it's tig-tacked. You can see where the tig-tack is just left there. Just starting to melt right there. Yeah, there's a blob. Do the other side, and it should just come off. It's a custom frame, and I kind of remember Richard ordering the specs. He's got a different head angle at 71, the seat angle is 73, and he wanted a pump peg here, and I guess we put it on because here's the two pump pegs. We never did that on any other frame as far as I know. This particular pump peg is going to be in the way of the stay. It's going to be hard to grind, very hard to TIG weld, so I'm going to heat that up. It's coming off. I'm just going to heat right about here. I'll try and keep the heat off the tube. And if the pump peg gets hot, it doesn't really matter. It's just the pump peg. There we go. I like to grind outside because all the dust just goes away. I'm going to grind it down so it's almost on the bottom bracket. The last part will be filed. I do not want to actually go down quite as far as the bottom bracket. That's one side done. I was being very careful not to gouge into the seat tube, so I'm happy with that. One more side to go. You can actually see the serial number. It's B173. After a while, we didn't use the B anymore. It was hard to stamp the B because it's quite a surface area. We just used a dot. So if you have an old Brodie frame and there's a dot, that is part of the B series. Looks like there's a little bit of external rust right there because that's on the outside of the weld. I think this frame had a hard life. Something tells me. See that? See how far it goes in? So the seat tube has some rust in it as well. So, and I think that's probably, yeah, that's another, wow. I think what has to happen here is after the stays get welded on, that gets indented and that gets filled up with a bit of bronze. I think that's the best thing because to change the seat tube is so much work. It's almost like easier just to build another frame, so that's not going to happen. So that's a bit of a problem there, that rust. But the frame is close to 30 years old, so if it could tell a story, that'd be very interesting. I've got my Ritchie belt sander. Got this off Tom in 1984 when I stopped by for a small visit. I've got the flats all sanded up, so what I need to do is to sand on the bottoms and the tops. So I'm going to use the other belt sander. It'll go back into the park stand. I think we're ready to miter our new chainstays. I've got the hole saw held in alloy V blocks. I've centered the hole saw. I used the digital readout. Set the angle at 18 degrees. That's what it always was before. 1.5-inch hole saw. Let's take a cut and we'll put it on the bottom bracket and see how close we are. I went about 1/4 inch here. Looks like it's out just a little bit. I've got 17 degrees on this one, tiny little flat spot there. That's much more in line. So that looks good. So we need to make a cut at an angle. I remember it used to be an angle of about 7 degrees. So we use an end mill for that. So the end mill goes down and cuts like that. I'm not sure we'll go that deep. And then there's a scoop here, and that's where the fillet braze happens, like that. So that's basically what we want to set up. I've got a holder in the vise here, and I'll show you how it's made because it's kind of a neat little tool. So it sits in the vise drawers. There's an Allen head screw on each end. That's what centers it. And there's a fulcrum, and then there's a bolt here, and there's a shelf where the stay fits onto. That's what holds it. So this fits on like that. And then I can adjust this screw here. And what I want to show you is that I've got it adjusted so that there's a little bit extra pressure up here, because when I move this, can you see how the back moves? This moves here, but it's getting held more up there, and that's what I want. So now I'll put a stop here, and then when I miter this one, and then I take out this one, I put the next one in, they'll both be identical lengths. That's important when you're building a frame. Okay, so that fits on. I think that can work. I'm going to put a scoop on the back here. There you go. See, I left a little flat there. That's for TIG tacking. If I had a really sharp point, it would melt away. I'll do a little sanding, and then on the right side we have to put in a dimple for the middle ring so it gets a little bit of chain clearance. It's a little hard to see, but the indent I can see goes from here to here about. So I cut a little bit off the stay because this is the hacksaw, so I'm trying to line it up more or less. So we need a dimple from here to here. This is my arbor press. See this thing here? This has got used for so many frames. This is a piece of brass, and it's been silver soldered onto a piece of steel, and this fits up into the ram. There's a set screw, and then there's this piece which got cut on the mill. Do you see how it's a good fit? So we have to space this up a little bit, and then we line up the center of this like that. So now I apply a little bit of pressure, and there's a dimple. It gives you just a little bit more room for the chain ring. and it's not so much that it weakens the tube. Setting it to 1/4 of an inch, and we'll make a mark, and then it's really easy to see if the stays are equally spaced. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. Okay. Got to make sure the dropouts are all the way down. Otherwise, you'll get a false reading. Don't want that. I think I got to take a little bit off. Yeah. I don't have it quite at the red felt pen mark, and it hits right there, so I need to grind just a little bit there, just on the belt sander. I need to grind a little flat right between there and there. Can you see here how it's not on the red line, how the stay overlaps the red line? So I need to do the same thing here. And you can actually see it. See how it rocks? When a tube rocks on another one after the miter, that's the high point. So I need to just put a little flat spot right in between there and there. And that's all it is. There's a tiny little flat spot on both of those. Okay, that one's gonna work there. Okay, that looks okay. So I'm gonna do some tic-tacking now. Okay. Couple tic-tacs. Okay, the small ends are all tacked, so I'm gonna weld around now. I haven't TIG welded for a while. I want you to know that. Okay. What I'll have to do is to knock down those holes and then fill them up with bronze. That's basically, otherwise the frame isn't worth fixing really. It's too much work to change a seat tube. Okay, it's coming up to heat. Just going around with a little bit of nickel silver to start with, and then I'll get the brazing rod out. See, I was recycling some brazing rod. So heat the top up just a little bit to melt some in. Can you see it sinking a bit? See it sink? I think you do. Just makes it a little bit stronger. Okay, so the big fillet is filled in there. A little bit of concentration, that's what it is. I'll start working on the bridge tube now, because I've got to put in a bridge tube. It's 5/8 steel, chromoly. This is my fixture for holding the bridge tube. It's, I didn't make it, someone else did, who worked for me, and it's got a quick release from an old mountain bike, Shimano, and it clamps the tube very well. And now it's centered, 1.5 inch hole saw. We're going to miter. I'm going to sand the inside now, because then when I mark it, I don't have to sand it again. We'll just see where this bridge tube is. What we used to do was 14 3/8, which is 36.5 centimeters. So if I go 14 3/8, I make a mark on the top. So those marks are the center of the bridge tube. That's not the end, either end, that's the center of the bridge tube. So if I take a vernier now, and I go back half the diameter, that's where I'll put my mark on the bridge tube. So that's how long the bridge tube is going to be. So I'm going to hacksaw it about there, and then we'll miter to that line. Oh, not bad. Look at that. So those lines are the center. So that looks good. And that looks good too. So what I need to do now is to put that line on and make a 1/4 inch hole in the middle, because that's for the fender brace on. A little bit of a preheat, melts the flux a little bit. Flux acts like a mild glue. Then I'm going to tack under this side here, because it'll pull down on this side. Here's a tack, so I'm going to move the frame this way. Okay, so I'm going to braze this side, nickel silver. Trying to put a nice even bead all around. Yeah, that looks fine. That's a nice little bead of silver sword, nickel silver. It is pretty easy to mix up nickel silver with silver solder, but they are not the same. Okay, gonna silver solder in the water bottle braze on, the fender braze on. Small flame, silver solder. Got the cone really close here. That's what silver solder likes. And that's it. We're going to do a little filing here. That looks okay. got a brand new belt here too. That turned out quite nice. Okay, we're going to face and chase the bottom bracket. There's a lot of rust inside the bottom bracket, so put a nice coating of oil in there. This is cutting oil, it's not lubricating oil. Fixed cup side here. Another, there we go, that's about it. Anyone that thinks frame building is easy work, they are mistaken. This side's definitely going in easier. Okay, there we go. That's the chasing part of the operation where we recut the threads. And now we're going to put the inserts in and we'll face the sides. It's made by Campagnolo. And this one goes in here. You put them both in at the same time. And they've got to be below the surface, at least a couple millimeters, something like that. And they lock onto each other somewhat. There we go. They cut all around, look at that. That's what we want. I didn't take much off. Yeah, that's cut all around too, so that's good. We're checking the alignment on the rear end of this frame, and it's pretty narrow right now. It's at 129. It needs to be 135, 136. So we've got to do a little bit of pulling. Yeah, it's pretty equal. But it is too narrow, so we'll do a little pull, see what happens here. We'll give it a little push. So the spacing now is 135. Let's see if it's equal. Just touching. You can hear it. And this side is very, very equal. So I think maybe we'll just leave it like that for now. We'll check the dropouts. These are the Campy dropout tools. And that's not bad. I can tweak it a little bit more if I need to. That's basically good. So that is basically how we change a pair of chainstays on a frame. As you can see, it's quite a bit of work, but it's putting new life into an old frame that otherwise might have not been used again. So if you like what we do, there's a little link below, and see more. You can buy us a coffee. That would be very nice. Mitch and I like good coffee. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Stay safe.